Needless to say, I've been deeply touched by all the very gracious and kind remarks that have been expressed. I also say with regret, there is one that could not be here today, and that's the first grandchild, my eldest, my daughter Cherie. And Ricky and Cherie and 3 great-grandchildren are serving in the South Pacific Kingdom of Tonga as missionaries. And unfortunately, this very time, our General Superintendent also passed away. His funeral was yesterday. And they would have loved to have been here, but were unable to be here. But thank you so much for those gracious words that all of you have shared. I want to speak this morning about victory over death. In the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, it says there is a time for everything. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to be silent and a time to speak. Today, we are aware of the time to die, of the time to weep, of the time to be silent. Yet now this morning, it's a time to speak. As we ponder a life now gone. Her name was Yvonne Carlson. To me, she's irreplaceable, so special, as only a mother can be. Yes, my mother's death, as has been mentioned, is truly our loss. Yet for her it is immeasurable gain. She lived 89 years, rich in experiences. You might say she could write a book about her life. She did. Yes, in many ways it's very easy to speak about her because of those sterling qualities that have been mentioned: selflessness, sacrifice, and relationship. Our joy was her joy. Our pain was her pain. She lived for others. She loved to serve. She loved to please. And she would ignore her own suffering so she could enrich someone else's life. This was certainly true with her children. Her own needs were always last. While serving as missionaries in what is now called Bangladesh, it became necessary to send me to a boarding school in India for my own health's sake when I was just 6 years old. And to this day, I remember the steady stream of letters that came to me. They were illustrated with cartoon characters that she faithfully drew and sent. I knew that I was loved. I knew it was a very, very hard sacrifice for her. Such a loving mother, a motherly mother, to send me away to boarding school. I remember back in the early 60s when we were home on furlough, back in the day when TV was black and white. We missionary kids, it was very, very new and tremendously exciting. The Lone Ranger and the Rifleman and all these things. Wow, we were just like riveted. My mother, my dad and we kids would be watching TV, and my mother would be sitting somewhere by the TV facing us. And she would just watch us our faces, our expressions. You see, her family was her love. She didn't care about these shows. She cared about watching us. And she loved her family immensely. I remember as I so often came home on the mission field with all kinds of cuts and bruises, how she would drop everything to patch me up. Yes, it really is easy to talk about her. The list of selfless deeds is long indeed. But in her latter years, when she lived alone as a widow, when she increasingly desired to journey home, her eternal home, I would say, Mom, you can't die yet. And I would mention the victory over death that we Christians have. First, that she could never die until her work was done. And I say, Mom, God still got something for you to do. And as Grant mentioned, in her latter years, she was still leading people to Christ. I'm convinced that when we are serving the Lord in obedience to Him, that we will not die until our work is completed.